All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad to see so many people interacting and considering the circumstances. I want to welcome you to the M.O.S.T Commons, a resource to support the shift to remote teaching webinar. I am not going to stay on here for very long, just long enough to introduce you to Melissa Goldberg, who is a consultant with the edBridge partners and works with our OER efforts here in Maryland. So without further ado, I'm going to shut off my video and turn it over to Melissa.
Great, thank you so much, Wendy. And thanks to you and Maryland Online for hosting the webinar. And really, we thank all of you who are participating today. We know how crazy it's been for you. So I just have a few logistics before we get started. Wendy is going to hit the record button, so we will be recording this webinar, and we'll make the link available to you afterward. It'll probably be in a day or two, and then for you to review and share with your colleagues. Also, due to the large number of people, we have muted all of you, but we don't want that to stop you from asking questions, so please do go ahead and type your questions into the chat, and we will be monitoring them. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end, but want you to continue to put your questions in as you move along. That really covers the logistics, and what I'd like to do now is hand this off to Dr. M.J. Bishop, who's the Associate Vice Chancellor and Director of the William E. Curran Center for Academic Innovation of the University System of Maryland. MJ?
Thanks, Melissa. Hi, everybody. I will add my thanks to all of you joining us here today. This has been absolutely unprecedented, and we've all been going through it together, but just hard to believe. When we first decided to do this webinar, I don't even remember the title of it originally, but this was several weeks ago. It's hard to believe how much things have changed just in that short period of time. So glad to have you here, and so appreciative of all the work that you're doing across the state to support our higher ed students in Maryland. So obviously we've changed the focus a little bit here on this webinar to being about the ways in which M.O.S.T Commons and OER might serve as a useful resource to support your shift to remote teaching. Before we get into that, I'll hand it over to Melissa, or excuse me, to Mindy. Lots of M's here today. I'll hand it over to Mindy here in just a second. But I wanted to real quickly explain what the M.O.S.T initiative is all about. So M.O.S.T is led by the Curran Center for Academic Innovation, but it's in partnership with Maryland Online, the Maryland Association of Community Colleges, or MAC, and the Maryland Independent College and University Association, MICUA. We've been working together to figure out the ways in which we could support OER adoptions across the state, with the primary purpose to think about ways we can increase access, affordability, and achievement. And that's something that we've really been pushing on quite a bit recently through the M.O.S.T initiative. You know, the fact that we're able to make college a lot more affordable for our students through the use of openly licensed and usually freely available resources has been wonderful, and one really tremendous benefit of our OER adoptions. But increasingly, we're starting to explore the ways in which we can also increase achievement for students by thinking about ways that we can adapt these resources to be more culturally relevant or context relevant, or to, when we discover that there are things that aren't working for a particular set of learners, to make changes to them accordingly. So I'm really excited about the OER work, and obviously now more than ever, as we're making this move into remote teaching and thinking about the use of more digital materials to support what we had been typically doing in a face-to-face environment, it seems very appropriate for us to point everyone that we can to the M.O.S.T Commons, which is a resource. We call it a referatory instead of repository, because the idea is that it's openly available, and that's what we're here to talk about a bit today. So couple of things real quickly, if you could go to the next slide. Our agenda, we'll do an overview of the most commons. Mindy is also going to provide us with some examples of supports for remote teaching that ISKME, the Institute for the Study of Knowledge Management, has been seeing nationally. We'll talk a little bit about collaboration using groups and the ways in which most commons can support faculty. So today's speakers, as soon as I stop talking here, Mindy Boland is Director of OER Services for the Institute of the Study of Knowledge Management, or ISKME, as I said before. We also have Colleen McKnight with us. Colleen is our inaugural M.O.S.T Library Fellow and Director of Library Services at Frederick Community College. And you already heard a little bit from Melissa Goldberg. Melissa is with an organization called edBridge Partners. edBridge has been with the Kerwin Center almost from the beginning in supporting a lot of our projects, and glad to have Melissa here keeping us all on track. So I'll turn it over to Mindy and have her do an overview of the most commons.
I guess it would be useful if I unmuted myself. That would make it easier, wouldn't it? So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I am excited to share with you a walkthrough of Most Commons, which is Maryland's very own OER Commons, available to you for finding OER, collaborating around OER, and creating OER. If you don't yet have an account set up, you can do that very easily. I'm just logged out so that I could show you the sign in and register workflow here. So you'll just enter your name and email address, I believe is what we're asking for when you register, in your institution. So go ahead and fill that out, and you can then get an email to confirm your account. And that will make it so that you're able to create groups, to submit resources that you found that are working for you that you want to share with others on Most Commons, and also to create groups where you can do collaboration with others.
Mindy, may I interrupt with one quick question? We are asking them to use their institutional email accounts, correct? Not
that is correct. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. So I'm sure many of you are wondering right now, in kind of a moment of need, where you will find resources and what you're going to use to begin using online materials for remote learning. And this library is a great place to start to look for content. So right here at the center of the page, you can begin a search. There is also an advanced search screen, but let's start here with just a basic search. So let's say I'm looking for something for a physics course. You can begin filtering using these subject headers or by education level. I'm just going to leave it at a keyword search. Now here I am on the search results page, and I have 601 records, which is kind of a lot, maybe a little bit daunting. So I encourage you to use the tools on the left of the screen here to refine your searches. This is where you can, again, you can filter by subject area. So we know that physics is a physical science. If you click on that, you'll see all of the underlying topics. So I could really go nail down anything that has been labeled with physics as the subject. Again, and education level here. So if you're looking for lower or upper division or graduate level materials, I'm going to leave that one alone. What I wanted to show you though is material type, because this is a really wonderful way to determine what level of granularity you're looking for. We have a question about whether or not this is for K-12 or higher ed. This is focused on higher ed. So there is a K-12 for Maryland hub on OER Commons, but the Most Commons is geared toward higher ed, which is why when you look at the education level, you only see the higher ed options. Oh, yes, this is the URL, it's useful too. The material type choices here, these are limited by what's in my search results, but I wanted to point them out because they really can help you determine if you're looking for something for tomorrow that you need to do to teach a specific topic, or if you're looking for a full course where maybe you want to use the last half of the book or maybe the whole book. It really is going to help you find the level of granularity you're looking for. We've heard that a lot of folks are looking for labs, so I'm going to filter on activity and lab to find resources that have been tagged with that. Further down, I can also filter on conditions of use, which align to the Creative Commons licenses, the open licenses. Content source, everything in my search results right now are content provider resources. And what that means, it goes back to what MJ was saying about this being largely a referatory. Those are resources that are hosted externally out on the web. If you think of M.O.S.T Commons as a library, we're pointing you to things that you can find in the library out on the web. So I'm going to go back up here and click on engineering physics. And to show you, this is the landing page for a resource. And really think of this as the equivalent of a card in a card catalog. It's going to tell you all about the resource. You can see the overview here and the metadata, including the license information. You can also see tags, and this is something that you can use yourself if you have unique terminology that you want to use to make it easier to find resources. You can put a tag on it yourself. You can also add comments about the resource, evaluate it using an Achieve OER rubric, and also you can add star ratings. And every piece of data that you add like that is going to benefit the broader M.O.S.T Commons community. By sharing your experience of a resource, you're going to be sharing the quality of that resource with other people who are using it. So now if I click View Resource, this one is going to open in a new tab because the resource is blocking the iframe. So I'll just be taken directly out to this. It looks like it is a folder in Google Drive with content, course modules, and course resources. Now, if I go back over here to the landing page, there are some other tools here. I can share to Google Classroom. I don't know if anyone is using Google Apps for Education, but this is one way to get resources to your students. If you click on that, you will be logging into your Google Classroom account and you can create an assignment. You can also share this resource on Twitter or Pinterest, and you can flag it if you want to report resources that you find that are not appropriate for this setting. So I'm going to go back to my search results. And let's look at some other options. So maybe I want to take off the activities and labs. Actually, let me just show you another way to do a search. So if I click the magnifying glass up in the top right corner, I'm going to open the search form that we saw on the home page. But instead of going through that again, I'm going to click Advanced Search. Now, we often joke that advanced search is only used by librarians, and I believe there probably are some librarians on this call. So you will appreciate kind of the detailed level of the metadata that we use to describe each resource. You can enter keywords here and subject areas and grade levels right at the top, or you can scroll down and use all of these other filters and ways of segmenting the research results. You can say, I want only something with ratings. Here is a longer list of the different material types that we have indexed on M.O.S.T Commons. And if you're asking yourself, what do these all mean? You can click, what's this? And you'll be taken to the Help Center with the definitions of each of those resources. So this is how we are thinking of these resources. That should help if you're kind of asking yourself, what is an assessment in this case? What is a case study? You're also able to filter by content source, and this is where you can see what we saw earlier, content provider resources. Those are the externally hosted resources, or resources that have been built in OpenAuthor, which I'm going to show you momentarily. This is the authoring tool that is built into the platform. There are other formats. You can look only for videos, for example, and you can also filter based on those conditions of use. So let's do a search. Maybe I want to put together a unit on poetry. So here I am, I've got my search results for poetry, and English romantic poetry just happens to be the thing that I'm looking for. So I'm going to select it, and now I can save it. So we have a question about whether or not the resources are in English or if we've included resources in other languages. There is support for language resources in other languages. I don't know that there are any currently indexed on Most Commons, but if you find resources that are OER that are in other languages, you can add them to the library. So I want to save English Romantic Poetry. I'm going to save it just for myself for now. I think it's something I'm going to use later. I've got my items, so that's my personal items that I have saved. I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it Poetry, Create and Save. So now I've taken this resource and I've saved it to my items. It just says right up here in the corner. So let me get all these Zoom windows out of the way. Now, if I want to go find my resources, I just click on the icon in the top right corner and I go to My Items. And I can see the resource that I've saved right here. And I can see that it's in my folder for poetry. So that is the first way as you begin looking through Most Commons, identifying resources that you think you might want to look at more closely or that you want to just start organizing for yourself. You can do that in My Items and you can create multiple folders. You don't have to do it when you're saving the resource. You can create them in advance. So maybe I want to do another folder about criticism. And maybe in poetry, I want to have a subfolder that is some postmodern poetry. And I can save that. So really, this space is your sandbox for organizing your resources in a way that makes sense to you. That's the way you think about it. If you're using this to organize resources for your course, maybe you want to think about it in terms of the week that you'll be teaching it. So week 10, week 17, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways that you can organize these and you can have as many folders as you need. Another way that you can curate resources and save them is with others. So if you go to My Groups, well, I'm going to My Groups. You don't have to go to My Groups. I'm a member of the Prince George's Community College Psychology Group. So I can look in that group and I can work with the other, maybe I'm the only member, so I should invite some people to my group. But the idea here is that you can work with other folks who are either in your department or maybe at a different institution. You can create groups and create a workspace where you can organize materials together. Really, I just want to share this with you because it's another place where you can organize things into folders that make sense to you, that you meet your mental models so that you can benefit from the metadata schema describing each of these resources, but you can also think about it in your own way. Colleen is going to go a little bit deeper into groups, so she'll share with you how that works a little bit later in the webinar. I just wanted to share with you that you can do this sort of curation and sharing collaboratively. And that you can also, once you're in the site, you can look at what other groups have done and benefit from their work and the curation that they've done. So one of the things I like to tell people when we're using OER Commons and I'm sharing that with them is that they can benefit from the work that others have done. So you can go in and you can see what's happening on different campuses, for example, if they have a hub set up, and you can see what they've curated and use that as a starting point for your own curation and sharing and saving. Another thing I want to mention, whether you have items in My Items, whether you're in a group, whether you're affiliated with one of the hubs, you can take any resource that you find on Most Commons and you can get that resource into your learning management system. So I showed you the Google Classroom link. It's a little bit different for the LTI integration. You would submit a help ticket, so you can see that right here. And you can say LTI access and ask for your credentials to get an LTI key and secret. You can also come over here and look at the search, look at the Help Center to find more information about LTI, which is probably down here somewhere. But you can submit a ticket and then we will help you get set up with your learning management system. We are interoperable with all of the major LMSs, and that is a great way to get that content out to your students where they need it. The next thing I want to share with you is how to use OpenAuthor. So I've seen a lot of Facebook groups and Twitter folks and listservs where people are just sending out links to resources they've created or used, which is great. I always applaud sharing, but it is nice to do it in kind of a structured way so that things can be then found again later. So if you have created something that you want to share, or if you are interested in authoring something, you can click the Add OER button. You can submit from web by click add link, and that's going to create one of those externally hosted resources. So you would put in your URL here. I'm just going to grab a URL. Click continue. And then you'll be asked to apply metadata to your resource to make it for others to find. So this is really going to help that discoverability of resources. You would add your description, the authors of this resource that you have found on the web. You're going to look for the license information. So here you can see all of the different licenses available, including I don't see any of these. So if you do look all over your resource, you don't see anything that says all rights reserved or any of these license pieces, then you can say I don't see any of these, and our digital librarians will take a look. If you click on each of these, I'm getting a weird message here. Okay, if I click on, I'm going to refresh this because it's, something is happening. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty here for a moment. Okay, we did it. So now if you are asking yourself, what do all of these mean? I don't know. You can click on each one, hopefully. Well, you can click on each one and it's going to give you a definition of each of those resources. I think I'm having some bandwidth issues. A web page I've opened is causing me problems, so I apologize for that. But you can see what those different licenses mean. And if you see the corresponding iconography, you can select that. Further down, you would add the other metadata to your resource, including who it's for. So this would be teacher, librarian, student, educational use. Is it for curriculum and instruction, or is it for professional learning? The subject areas, the material types, as we've discussed, media formats, and language. So if you are sharing a resource that's in a different language, the title of your resource and the overview, if that is also in that language, those will be searchable, so you can find it, and you can also search by language. I'm going to go back this way. Actually, I'm going to close this because it's something happening. Okay, so let me just click that and try again. Okay, so now I'm going to show you Open Author, and Open Author is a more robust tool than sharing a URL. So if you click Add OER and then Open Author, this is where you can actually create resources, or you can share something that you've already created in Google Docs, for example. So you would enter your title. If you have an image that you want to put at the top, you can put that there. Give it a section name. And then this is the main content area. So if you have created a Word doc in OneDrive or a Google Doc, you can import that now, or you can just add your content here. We make some recommendations around using the styles menu so that you get your headings and your formatted pieces labeled semantically. We also have a really robust paste from Word and paste from Excel tends to work really well. You can embed images and tables and videos and math and glossaries. And once you've entered all of your content, I suggest you click this button here, the accessibility checker. I don't have anything in here, so there's not going to be any issues, but that will go through your content and ensure that you are making it as accessible for your users as you can. So it's a really nice tool. It's going to show you things like making sure that you have your headers set up correctly, that you have included alt text for your images and things like that. You can also attach resources like readings or PowerPoints, PDFs, whatever you might have that will support that lesson. You can attach right here so that that will be available to your students. And then if you wanted to share some contextualization, some strategies for using this content to other instructors, you can enter that in the Instructor Notes section. And then you can have multiple sections. So if you want to have a progressive resource or multiple parts to it, you can just click Insert New Section. And sorry, it's gonna, I don't have any content in, so I would be able to create a new section and I can have several of those. The next step would be to click Publish, where you again would be asked to enter the metadata that will make your resource findable. So let's find a resource that has been authored to take a quick look. So here are some resources that were created in the authoring tool. Let's open one up. And you can see here, this is a whole book, actually, African American literature, and we are in the 19th century chapter. So you can see that there are multiple units, and then those are made up of lessons, and those lessons are like what we just looked like. It looks like they're still building it, so nothing there yet, but I encourage you to, if you're interested in creating courses like this, we can work with you to set up those course shells. Sorry. And make it so that you can add your content to those. So I think that is probably the high-level overview of the platform for creating, sharing, and curating resources, as well as searching for them. If it's okay, I will roll right into the overview of what others are doing to support remote learning.
That'd be great.
Okay, fantastic. Working for ISKME and managing the OER Commons Digital Library, we have a lot of partners like M.O.S.T, and there's a lot of work being done to support remote learning and teaching and learning. And I know for me, it's really been helpful to feel like I have some purpose in this weird time to be able to offer any supports that I can. So I'm going to leave M.O.S.T Commons for a moment and take you over to OER Commons and share with you some things that we have there. If you see materials on OER Commons that you think would be beneficial to users of M.O.S.T Commons, you can use that submit from web, add the link, and add the link to the original resource right here. So I'm going to go over to OER Commons. If you're not familiar with OER Commons, this is ISKME's sort of flagship digital library of OER. So it's been around for about 12 years, has many, many resources. And we have done some work to curate resources specifically for higher ed. So one place that you might want to look is the Open Textbooks Hub. We found that that users were coming to OER Commons and they were looking for free textbooks, essentially. So we made this hub to aggregate all of those resources that we have, and you can see them here organized by discipline. So if you are looking for something that is not yet indexed on M.O.S.T Commons, you might find it here in these collections. We've also similarly organized the collections around the providers. So these are the resources as they by the creators of them, indexed here into provider sets. So if you are looking for something that has not yet been indexed on M.O.S.T Commons, you might find it here on the Open Textbook Hub. Another thing I wanted to share with you is that we are partnered with OpenStax. And OpenStax, as I'm sure many of you are aware, have a wonderful collection of higher ed textbooks. And the folks who have adopted OpenStax textbooks kept reaching out to OpenStax and saying, I created this PowerPoint to go with the book. How do I share it back? They were all ready to be all in on open educational practice and wanted to share back the wonderful ancillary materials that they've each created. So we partnered with OpenStax to support that, and the OpenStax Hub is where those resources are being shared. You can see here they've used the groups feature for their Creator Fest, which they've now done for 2 years. And then down here, every OpenStax title has a group on OER Commons. They sent out invitations to folks who've adopted these books to join these groups and be a part of this community site. So you can see here, for example, on the statistics group, they have 110 members, 28 resources, and they've organized them into faculty resources and student resources, and then the textbooks. So you can see in here what materials folks have shared back, folks who are already using those OpenStax books, what they've created and shared back to the community. So that's another resource for you. And even if you aren't using the books, you may find that those ancillary materials for those, they're pretty much general education courses, are still going to help you meet your needs for doing remote teaching and learning. One thing I wanted to share with you is just this really interesting project that some folks came to us after they'd kind of already started it. But there was a call to action from someone out of Houston to anthropologists saying, you know, let's start sharing some videos, some mini lectures about the work that we're doing. So this is the original resource. They put out a call to action to anthropologists to share. You can see they've been adding co-authors to their resource where each person gets to add a section to the resource and share their videos and the supporting materials. So it's just a really interesting crowdsourced approach to both OER and to support remote learning. I'm going to show you what they did, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing with them. So if you scroll down, you can see that they have mini lectures, each section, like in the authoring tool that we just looked at. These are just the same kind of sections where they've uploaded their videos, and then they have shared some additional readings. On the right is all of the attached files that they have in this resource. This resource is getting very large, but it's really interesting. And we do index section titles, so that content is indexed in our search engine as well. I think this is really kind of compelling, and if you're talking to folks across Maryland who are teaching the same subject and have their own kind of interests or things that they want to share, this is a great approach to doing that. It's really a cool project. So we've connected with the two leads on this project, Zoe Wool and Paige West, and we're actually building this out for them as a course. So instead of using the format that they're using, we have taken the content and started migrating it over to a structure that makes it a little bit easier to use. So we'll have the mini lectures as a course, and then each one of their mini lectures will be its own lesson. So we're working on migrating that content with them. But I just wanted to share this with you as something that's really innovative and cool.
and Mindy, if I could jump in here just for a second with respect to our most commons context. For example, the groups that Mindy showed you earlier, we could set up groups across all of our institutions that are teaching anthropology courses or psychology courses or whatever they may be. And I think we already have a few of those disciplinary groups that cut across institutions set up. So this is a place, for example, where you could collaborate around microbiology is an example right there. And remember that the materials that are shared on the Most Commons don't just have to, you don't have to have just written a microbiology textbook to put it up there. You know, you could also be sharing activity ideas or you know, how have I translated my lab to something that my students could do in their kitchens? Although I suspect we probably shouldn't be doing microbiology labs in our kitchens. I don't know that much about it, but you know, but we could be sharing those kinds of materials collaboratively within these groups in much the same way that Mindy just showed with the anthropology example. And as long as you all are willing to share them, make them openly licensed, they're completely appropriate for us to be putting up here on Most Commons.
Yes, thank you. I do think, you know, groups is a great way to bring folks together to do that kind of work. And when you're in a group with others, you can share materials that you're creating as drafts, so you can work together to get it where you want it before you publish it to the broader library. It's on my dresser. sorry. So a couple other items that I wanted to share with you. One is just sort of an interesting hub that we have on OER Commons, given kind of the state of the world at the moment. This is the Nordic University Health Hub, and this is a collaboration among 12 universities in Scandinavia, where they have created videos around global health. So if you are looking for video content, they are in English that you can share. These are really kind of fitting for the times, and this is a nice array of resources here on the Nordic University Health Hub. A couple other things. I joined a call earlier this week with the LibOER group that Spark puts together, and Amy Hoffer out of Open Oregon shared a pandemic one-sheet that she's created to share with faculty with some advice about open education and remote courses. I think we can probably add this to Most Commons as a resource, but it is a nice overview, just kind of a quick look at what you might want to think about as you're shifting to remote learning, remote courses, and I think we'll add that there. And you can also, there's embedded links here to Open Oregon. She's done a great job of putting together some useful tools, including managing stress, which I know we're all feeling right now, and setting a schedule, which I did this morning with my daughter. So the other thing that I wanted to share was the online teaching motto, less work, more learning. I think this is great, and I love this question. Is this something my students could do instead of me? So being sure to empower your students to figure things out a little bit more, but of course being available to them as well. So I will work with Colleen to see if we want to bring this material over into Most Commons and make it available for you all to review. And speaking of Colleen, Colleen is going to do a deeper dive with you all now into collaboration with groups. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all.
Hi, everybody. So I am going to talk a little bit more about groups. There seemed to be some interest about it. So I'm going to share my screen now. So how I'm going to do this is I am actually in as a test person. So what you're going to see is what you would see if you registered for Most Commons. So I'm in here not as an administrator at the moment. And I'm going to go up here to the groups. So this is where you're going to see all the groups. And again, see all groups is over here on the side. So these are all the groups that are currently in Most Commons. We had a question before about if you could search for a group. You can. So you can search here to see if there is a group that's maybe of interest to you. We don't have so many groups that you couldn't go through. We've got about 2 pages, so you can always go through and just browse through the groups as well. I'm going to go into our Molly OER group here, since I was a member of that at one point in time. And we had a question of how can you join a group? So if you'd like to join a group, you're going to see a little join this group. If you click on that, if it is an open group, you automatically are in. So now I am in here as a group. This is me right here. So if it is a group where you have to ask or get permission to join, it'll send a note to the actual administrator of the group, and then they can approve you joining the group. So it is that easy to actually join a group. I'm going to go back to my groups again. In here, you're also going to see that you can create a group. So this is where you create a group right up here. You do not need permission to create a group. If you're registered in Most Commons, you can do that. So you can name your group whatever you'd like. You can say who this group is. So if you want to say, hey, this is mostly for instructors, students can actually create groups as well. And then you have administrators too. So it's up to you what you'd like to make it. I'm going to do a quick test. I'm going to say it's general. You can create subjects with that group. This is sort of when you search, there's some key things for people to search, and you can say what the grade level is. This is the same grade level that we have with the educational grades when you're searching for resources. So I'm gonna say it is history and community college. Same thing, this helps if people are searching, so you can describe what this group is. And this is where you can put your permissions. So you can say anyone can join this. That means you do not have to approve somebody joining, or you can say need approval, and it's that easy. Then hit create my group, and your group is going to show up in the M.O.S.T OER Commons. I'm not going to do that right now, but that gives you an idea of how you can create a group. Let me go to my actual test group that I have set up, just to give you guys an idea of the things you can do in a group. So first off, and Mindy talked a little bit about this, you can pull resources in. Any resource that is in the M.O.S.T Commons, you can use the group to kind of curate those resources. So you can actually add a resource directly into the group, either with open author or as a submission from the web. Or if it's something that already exists in M.O.S.T Commons, I'll show you how you can pull that into your group. You can create as many folders as you'd like. Folders are really easy to create. Just hit that, put your folder title in, and do save. You're going to notice that you can create subfolders. And if you'd like to create a subfolder, it's just hitting the little folder menu that comes up, these 3 dots over on the side, and that will allow you to create a subfolder. You can also rename a folder or delete a folder if you need to. When you land on a group, it almost always gives you all of the group resources first, and then you can go into each folder to sort of limit what it is that you're looking at within those folders. So that's the easy way to sort of start to curate, to organize resources within a group. The other really nice group feature is discussions. So with discussions, this is where you can really start to get some conversations in. I'm going to go into a discussion just so you can see what it looks like. Very easy, just has a little topic here, tell you who the user is. You can create a reply. You can actually create replies very far down if you want to. If you're the person who created the reply or the comment, you're able to edit or delete that comment. If you're an administrator for a group, you can actually edit and delete anybody's comments. What's also a really nice feature is you can link directly to a comment. So I could take this link and send it to anyone I want it if there was something that somebody said in a discussion that I want to keep or save or send out to somebody else, which is a really nice feature to have. Again, it's really easy to create a discussion. Just say start new discussion. And you can actually limit the discussions to only people in the group being able to see it, or you can make sure that anyone who is on M.O.S.T Commons can see what's happening in these discussions. So it's totally up to you what you would like to do. I'm going to show the members page just to give you a sense. This will show you everybody who is in the group. If you are an admin for the group, this is also the page you would go to approve anybody in the group, to remove anyone from the group, or to add people to the group. So you can actually send emails out and direct invitations to people in groups as well. And there's this little add member that will show up here that shows you how to do that. So those are your group features. Are there any questions currently about that? Anyone? Okay, all right. Now I'm going to show you how to actually pull resources into a group. So I'm going to start over here in our resources, and I'm actually going to browse rather than search this time. So this is a good way for you to see browsing as well. And my group was mostly biology. So I'm going to go to my life sciences. Now I'm going to see everything that's in here that's under life sciences. I'm going to go to biology. And I realize that I want to add assessment materials. So I'm going to go to material type, and I'm going to click assessment. So now I've got about 8 search results, and I can see which ones I want to do. I'm going to point out this one. That's because this is actually a really nice resource, these Montgomery College Open Pedagogy resources. These are something Montgomery College has put together. So it's these assessments, activity labs, homework assignments that are about open pedagogy. So I'm going to grab one of those. And here again is that resource page that Mindy showed you guys, and you're going to see the save up here. So rather than going to a save and saving it to my items, I'm going to actually save it to the groups that I'm a part of. And I can save it directly into one of the folders that I already have. If you don't have a folder, so I want an assessment folder, I can actually create a new folder right away. So I'm going to do that. make sure that I put it under my group. So I'm going to create and save, and it's automatically saved it into that institution, into that folder. And there's a place where you can undo right away also. So if you save something and then think, oh no, I didn't want to do that, you can undo it right away as well. So I'm going to go to my group. And there it is right there, along with my new folder, assessment. Now, if for some reason I forgot to add a new folder, and I was like, oh man, I really wanted to make an assessment folder, I can go ahead and do it after the fact. And then I can move any resource that I want into that new folder. And to move a resource, you just have to click next to the resource. You're going to see the save come up here, and then I can move it just like I did with the save before. So now I've moved that into my assessment 2 folder. And actually it copies it, so it's in both places now. So that's a really easy way to move things around. If you delete a folder, it actually deletes everything in that folder as well, so be aware of that. You may want to move things before you actually delete them, if that's something that you want to do. Those are the main sort of activities around groups and how those groups kind of work. I did want to go into a little bit how M.O.S.T can sort of help you pull together the things that you need. So one of those things is setting up groups. Again, there is no barrier if you would like to set up that group yourself. So you would be able to go in and set up a group if you wanted to. I see there is a question here. So is there a mechanism to support recovering lost or deleted content? So I guess I should make clear that when it is deleted content, it is not deleting it from M.O.S.T Commons. It's just removing it from your group. So whenever anything is in your group, it exists on M.O.S.T Commons, and it's always going to exist there. What the group does is simply give a record of that or a link to that resource in M.O.S.T Common or in your group. So that is how that works. Yeah, the only way to actually remove something from M.O.S.T Commons would be for a super administrator to do that, so you never have to worry about that piece. Okay. So let me give you a sense of some of the things that M.O.S.T Commons can do to support you guys right now. Again, we can set up groups. So if you're not sure if you are comfortable setting up a group and you would like help, you just have to email us at most@umd.edu, and we'd be able to set up that group for you. You can go in and start to set up a group yourself. If you're not sure about all the administrative functions of a group, we are happy to meet with you and help you with that as well, to go into that. One of the things that Mindy talked about was those course shells. So if you would like to create a course shell because you would like to start to pull together resources for a curriculum or a project like that anthropology mini lecture, we can help you with that as well. That's just a request to make to us, and we'd be able to start to set that up with you. The other really nice thing you can do, or we can do, is help add resources to the M.O.S.T site if you would like. So if, for instance, you found a really good list of resources, but you're not sure how to add it in, you can literally send, hey, I found these resources. Would you be able to add them to the M.O.S.T site? And we would help you do that. Also, if you find a lot of resources from a certain provider or a certain website that is an OER Commons that you do not find in M.O.S.T Commons, you can let us know about that as well. And we'd be able to batch pull those in so you wouldn't have to add them one at a time. So we can make things a little bit easier for you around that. The other thing that I want to point out is our Curated Collections as well. So I'm going to go to this Collections tab. You're going to see it also on the M.O.S.T Commons main site with this Curated Collections. So one of the things we can do is pull together any collection that's already curated so that you can see what's there around certain subjects, around certain types of materials, around certain providers, so you don't have to go through and do a bunch of searches. You'll see that right now our featured topics, we have a lot under subjects, but we have pulled some together based on what we've heard from faculty, things that they're looking for that they might need help with. So these science labs and activities, there's 44 resources in MOST about that, some video audio lectures that exist out there, and language learning activities. So this is a really easy way for us to help pull things together for you without you having to go and do separate searches for things. If you know that there are resources that you are struggling to find, or that you have heard other faculty members talk about struggling to find, then this is something we'd really like to be able to offer to you, to pull together a collection and send it to you and push it out on MOST Commons so you'd be able to find those resources. So that is something that we are able to do as well. Are there any questions?
While we're waiting for questions, I'm just going to add, Colleen keeps talking in the royal we about we will do this. I just want to thank Colleen for the fact that that's mostly her. She has, as I mentioned at the top of the session, she's our very first inaugural MOST Library Fellow, and has just been doing yeoman's work and a tremendous job at this. So thank you, Colleen. Really, really, really made a good choice having you be our first. So thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome. Okay, Melissa, I think I'm going to pass this off to you then.
Okay.
Just real quickly, Kristen Collin asked, where do you go to find materials from the curated collections?
Sure. So where I go to find those resources are within MOST Commons itself. So anything that is in MOST Commons, I can pull into a curated collection. I don't know if there is, but that is something I will write down and I will look. And if we don't have resources, then I can go out and see if there's some resources I can pull into the MOST Commons.
On plagiarism?
You're just talking about from OpenStax.
You know, well, Erica first asked about plagiarism, and I just wanted to point out, Erica, we've been also running a series of, as you know, of academic integrity conversations that also address some of those kinds of issues. So happy to plug you into some of that if that would be helpful.
And Kristen, yes, we are pulling information or things from OpenStax and OER Commons. So OpenStax resources are indexed in MOST Commons, and a lot of our content is also in OER Commons, but not all of the content in OER Commons is in MOST Commons. So that's why we asked, if you find something in OER Commons that you would like to see in MOST Commons, you just have to let us know and we'd be able to pull information in. I'll be actually adding more things into MOST Commons by the end of this week, because I did some searches in MOST Commons or in OER Commons that I know would be good resources to have in MOST Commons.
So one of the advantages to doing MOST Commons, in addition to OER Commons, is as you start to get into the materials themselves, you'll see there are places where you can leave comments. My hope is that as we get more sophisticated with this and have our groups working on specific curations and so forth, that we could begin actually communicating within Maryland on the use of these materials, so that, for example, as is already happening with the Western Maryland OER group, institutions there can be cross-pollinating on the materials that they're using, so that Frederick Community College and Allegheny and Garrett and Frostburg all know what particular materials they're using for certain kinds of courses. So I see loads of opportunities here for creating that kind of internal inside of Maryland conversation, while at the same time not closing ourselves off from the rest of the OER community and the things that are happening, you know, in OpenStax and OER Commons and so forth. So again, this is a referatory, not a repository. It's intended to be outward facing, but also to provide us with some of that additional functionality internally that will support our collaborations across the state.
Let me quickly go ahead and show you that you can look at the providers that we have. So under that Discover, if you go to providers, it'll show you all the providers that are in MOST Commons as well. I should note that if they don't have more than, I think, 10 items in here. They don't show up as a provider in this list, so there may be other providers that are not listed on this provider page. I know Melissa is also going to talk about the institutional sites, but I do want to give a shout out to some of the colleges already. There are some colleges in Maryland who have already made institutional sites and started to populate things. Warwick was one of our first ones who did that. Montgomery College has quite a few things in there as well. Hagerstown and Hartford just started theirs just right before all of everything with COVID-19 happened. The same thing with the University of Baltimore. So I know Melissa's going to go into this more, but this is another place where you can see what other colleges have already started to pull into their courses. So it's a really quick way to go in and see what's happening. For instance, I'll just go to Warwick real fast so you can see what they've done. If you go down to here, you're going to see their groups. And within their groups, you're going to see this is what Warwick is using in their art 101 class and in their communications class. So this is another resource just to get an idea of what's happening in Maryland specifically. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand things over to Melissa.
Great, thank you, Colleen. And if you don't mind, just thanks. Share my screen, and that was a great segue because actually that's exactly where I was going to go. So one other way, as Colleen started to show you that we can support institutions is with these institutional sites. They're essentially mini most commons that are targeted toward the institution itself so that you can share and collaborate with your colleagues within your institution. So as Colleen showed you, there are groups that are opportunities for sharing. They also, this one again, we're looking at Warwick's. They have their own collections. In the case of Warwick, they have them by provider. They also have them by subjects. And these are available, these sites, to any institution. They are free of charge. M.O.S.T is supplying, making those available for any institution. However, we are asking for a few things. They do require some staffing, both a site administrator who works with our team to get these up and running, and then who manages and maintains them over time. And we estimate it's probably about 4 hours a week to keep these moving. We have some site administrators on this webinar with us who may believe it's, say it's about that amount of time or a different amount of time. Also, as Colleen was pointing out, we also are looking for group administrators. So the groups, as Colleen pointed out, are developed on M.O.S.T Commons, but they are pulled into the institutional site themselves. And we really look for the group administrator to kind of serve as a community of practice to get the group started, to populate it with different resources, or to begin to invite other members to the group, to seed discussions and that sort of thing over time. And we are asking, if you have an interest in an institutional site, that you seek approval from your provost or chief academic officer. And beyond that, if you want more information about institutional sites, you can just email us at most@usmd.edu, and we can work with you on that. Let's see, so I can stop sharing. And really, where we are at this stage is really wanted to open this up to questions. Are there things, have you been using M.O.S.T Commons and you have questions? Are you new and you have additional questions for Mindy, for Colleen, for MJ, or for me about how to use the site? We really wanted to open this up. I hope we didn't overwhelm you so much that you don't have questions.
I've been working under the assumption that everyone is overwhelmed, and then when they start digging in, the questions will start to emerge.
Right.
Can we talk about Pressbooks as a publication platform and how it integrates looks with M.O.S.T?
Okay.
So I can speak to this a little bit, if that's helpful. ISKME has had a number of partners that do work with Pressbooks, and what M.O.S.T Commons offers is that a way to make those findable. So I would suggest when you create a Pressbooks that you index it as a submitted resource using the URL, and then it's findable for everyone on M.O.S.T Commons to access. So together you kind of get the benefits of the Pressbooks platform and the findability of the library.
And we have been working with Pressbooks on a statewide opportunity for licenses. And if you haven't already seen it, we've been sending out emails about that as well. Happy to, again, if you reach out to most at usmd.edu, we'd be happy to point you in the direction of that. But yeah, I will double up on what Mindy said. You know, the advantages behind the M.O.S.T Commons is to make it all discoverable and shareable among us. So I think, you know, when we are sure to make sure that it's been submitted to M.O.S.T Commons, that'll make sure that, you know, these things are all available across the state.
Who else has a question?
Thank you. Irene says, thank you for this presentation and sharing your good work. Yeah, really can't thank Colleen and Melissa and Mindy enough for how much they've put into getting this all set up for us, and also supporting the request for institutional sites. The other, you know, potential benefit for the institutional site, as you may have seen, is that it's essentially white labeled. So as you all are doing good work on OER adoptions on your campuses, that's a place that you can point people. It will still feel like Warwick or Montgomery or Frostburg or whatever your institution look and feel is, while at the same time allowing that, you know, the creation of groups and cross-disciplinary plus cross-institutional collaborations that we're hoping to support.
Kristen, thanks for your question about whether or not there are groups or communities of practice for you to support each other as you build M.O.S.T content. There are some groups out there already, but you can also start a group if there is a particular content area and you'd like to engage with others from other institutions. You can actually start a group for that particular discipline area.
And I would add that we can, Kristen may not know who all the folks are in the disciplines across the rest of the state. We can help to support making those connections. So earlier, Erica had asked the question about getting everybody together that's using the OpenStack psychology book. We know not all of them, but an awful lot of the psychology folks across the state, both at the USM institutions as well as the community colleges. So we can at least kind of help to jumpstart it and connect you all with folks within your discipline.
We have a question from Erica asking if we can talk in more detail for a minute about the capabilities of course shells on M.O.S.T. And so I think this kind of a combination of maybe Mindy and Colleen.
So Mindy, I might throw this over to you more. It's because it's the OER, it's the open author, and it's our ability to create actual shells that you can start to put content into. So that African American literature course that Mindy showed, that is a course that was built for an instructor who is creating a OER resource using a M.O.S.T grant. So we basically gave her the shell and all she had to do was put the content in. So that is something that we are able to do. As far as what is available in it, I believe it's what you showed. So for instance, you can put video clips into a course shell. You can add content into a course shell. You can write that course. You can write the content directly into that shell. Am I missing anything, Mindy, that you can think of?
I think you've got it exactly right. Basically, what the course shell is going to allow you to do is to have multiple lessons, you know, grouped into units into a course so that they're sequenced the way that you want them. And what Colleen will do is make you the author, and then you can bring your content into those empty lessons and publish them. So we've done that a lot on OER Commons. We had some folks in Austin Community College who their whole platform was deprecated, and so they wanted to take all their content. So they brought about 6 books into OER Commons. And also those courses that are created can be shared across OER Commons and microsites. So we can bring courses into M.O.S.T Commons, and if you create courses, we can share those out with the broader community too. So they're really, really flexible and can also be downloaded in multiple formats once you've created a course. So you could have Braille-ready EPUBs or PDFs or thin common cartridge, all available when you've done that kind of work. I usually request like an outline or something to give me a sense of what you're going to include when I create a shell.
How compliant is the Commons with ADA?
So accessibility is very important to us, and we have been doing a lot of work on the platform to improve the accessibility of the front end. Some of that has come through a partnership with the organization CAST. So the accessibility checker I showed you, the EPUB downloads, those are both out of that work. So resources that you're creating in the authoring tool will be accessible. And over the next couple of months, we will be rolling out the more accessible code from OER Commons across all of our sites. So we've been doing that coding work and getting it ready to bring over to all of the sites to be a WCAG compliant.
Great. What other questions do you have? Okay. Well, we don't want to take up more of your time if you don't have additional questions. Let me see. I am going to just share with you some opportunities to, give me one second, to gather more information. So we have recorded this webinar. We will be sending it out to you and to all folks who registered, and feel free to share that link. We'll also be sure to get you links to some of the examples that Mindy shared today. Also, we just wanted to point out a number of places where you can look for additional information. Of course, the link to M.O.S.T Commons is the top here, most.oercommons.org. We also have listed the M.O.S.T website, as well as the Kerwin Center website, all good sources for getting information and where we post information that will be hopefully helpful to you. Also, if you have an additional site or that sort of thing, you can email us at most@usmd.edu. So with that, I really would like to thank our speakers, Mindy and Colleen, and thank you, MJ, and Wendy and Maryland Online. Thank you so much for hosting this webinar, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thanks everybody for your attendance. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.